announce that this morning's budget hearing is with the University of Guam. And I'd like to also apologize for the absence of Senator Pangilinan, who, of course, is the oversight chair of the Office of Finance and Budgeting. He's off island, and he was also in Washington, D.C., speaking at a major housing privatization conference, which I think will be really good for Guam. So we anticipate his arrival to hear some news of that conference. And I'd like to also let you know, and the public know as well, is that the Office of Finance and Budget staff has been working diligently in analyzing, of course, all of the department's budgets. So have no fear, is that the office is still working, and you would see the results of their work today as we go through the budget. I'd like to thank my colleagues who have joined me this morning for the budget hearing. This is a little bit a different setup. I know it's a round table setup that had been arranged prior, and that and since the Mr. what's your name again? I'm joking. Had requested, of course, for this, then I will honor the request. I'd like to now thank the Vice Speaker for joining me this morning, Senator Yamashita, Senator Frank Blas Jr., Senator Tony Ada, and Senator Mabini. And if I may, I would like to ask the President if you can please introduce those who are at the table to testify.
Okay, half a day and good morning, and we appreciate the opportunity to be with you here this morning, Madam Speaker, and members of the committee and members of the legislature. With me this morning are, to my left is Vice President of Administration and Finance, David O'Brien. To my right, immediate right, is Dean Enriquez, Anita Borja Enriquez, who is also acting Senior Vice President. And then we have the Chairman of the Board of Regents, Dr. Chris Perez. And then we have a member of the Board of Regents, Regent Kathy Scrow. And then we have the President of the Student Government Association, Mr. Kenga. And I'll leave it to you to figure out. To decide.
That's smart. I was waiting, wondering how you were going to do that.
And we also have with us a student regent, Kenga, with us.
Okay. So I think how you can distinguish, because I looked, is the pins they're wearing is different.
That's
Either
right.
that or else we have to make it a rule here, is that they have to wear their pins, one on the left and one on the right, so we know who's who.
Okay, so I believe this is Regent Jesse Kenga. I mean, President Jesse Kenga. President and Regent Anthony Kenga. Of course, I'm sorry, and Regent Marcus Fong. So we're very glad to have this cozy arrangement. We're all sitting around the table. And what we want to do is present our requests for our budget proposal for fiscal year 2013. In this, we note that it's basically just a rollover budget, a little bit more just to deal with some additional costs. But before that, I'd like to give the regents an opportunity to make their comments. So we'll start with the Chairman of the Board of Regents.
Thank you very much, and half a day. I think we'll just go right straight into what we're here for. If you look at your packets, Senators, Madam Speaker, Mr. Vice Speaker, and members of the committee, basically, my slide, which I thought was supposed to be a slide today, is the page that you have that says the Board of Regents support, and wanted to represent the regents. And as we come before you today to let you know that all this says is that we're involved, and we have been participating in the budget process. We have a budget retreat, and then we do have the strategic initiatives sessions, and then just looking at budget assumptions. The board actually does have a specific committee, which is the Budget, Finance, Investment, and Audit Committee that kind of spearheads this review, but it also filters to all the other committees within the university's board, and then it goes to the board for actually an edict in the form of a resolution to adopt that this is indeed what we would like to present to you today. So You know, $33.2 million, I think, is what you're going to see if you turn to that next page. And I don't want to take any of the thunder from those that will be coming for us. But very simply put, $27.5 million in general operations. And then again, we would like to ask for your support in the tuition support that was granted to us last year of $1.4 million. And then for our student financial aid program of $3.8 million, and then the special operations of $0.5 million. Historically, I think we'll see that we've come before you annually, and I think we do know the routine. But one of the things that I wanted to point out again, and maybe for those that are listening in, is that over the past 10 years now, I think 2002 was probably the last time that we had a 50% or greater request for support from the government for us to be able to conduct our operations at the university. This request will be around 33%, I think, of what we would normally be using for operations and with our revenue projections. And so again now, and I actually was reading the President's self-evaluation report to us and telling us that it's no longer government support that we seek, but government assistance. And so again, we come before you as the board, and I'm glad to see my fellow board members here to let you know that that's really our desire. And I'm sure that we will have a discussion and perhaps even some debate. But at the end, I feel very comfortable that everyone around this table really bleeds the green of UOG, and I think we'll try and put something together, and hopefully we'll be able to do something. I also like to thank you for the support and your presence and your kind words over the past several months as we have conducted our celebration for the 60th year of our existence as a university, starting off with the Territorial College. This next year, I guess, will be the first of the next 60 years, and so we'd like to be able to come before you again and, for your assistance. I had the opportunity to sit with the speaker at the gala, and we didn't talk anything, we didn't talk politics, we just talked about the funny things that happened during the gala. And so I think next year we're planning that the senators that do help us, even those that don't, will be participating in the gala, and we'll have them have cameo appearances for some things. But anyway, I enjoyed the fact that we're sitting around the table. I was suggesting to Dean Enriquez that maybe what we should do is have a UOG and then a senator and UOG, then a senator and UOG, because that's how we do it when we share a meal. And so when I say pass the bread and butter in the form of $33.2 million, it's going to be easy for the speaker to do that. But again, thank you so very much for entertaining us this morning. I know our subject matter experts will be the ones that will be available for you to get the information that you will need. We do want you to ask those tough questions so that we could really show you that we can justify our needs. We do know also that there are financial constraints government-wide, and we recognize that. So it really just becomes then, you know, a noble endeavor for us to decide as a community, and you are represented as a community, of how much do we want to invest in this institution called the University of Guam. We're prepared to work hard. I think I get, you know, my pay annually hasn't increased from 0 to 0 over the past 6 years. So I think we could hold that steady. I agree with the other board members that we even if we doubled our income, it'd still be 0. So thank you again, and I do have some patients that I have to attend to later, so I'll be around for a little bit, and I'll turn it over to our other regents. Yeah.
I'll keep this very brief, but thank you for having us here today. When it comes to bread and butter, I think I would be the expert in that area. But I just want to assure you that each one of the board members, the Board of Regents, we take our responsibility very seriously when it comes to analyzing the expenses and the tuition that is involved in maintaining a strong university. And we are in full support of the appropriations and the requests that are that President Underwood would be presenting today. So we ask for your support, and once again, thank you for this opportunity to present.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, Senators. I just wanted to echo the sentiments of Chairman Perez and also Kathy on the board member support. Everything we do is a balance between making sure that there's finances, but at the same time we also have our students in mind as well. And the presentation today and the things that will be discussed are well thought out and fully supported by all the committees and all the members of the Board of Regents.
Thank you. Well, as the main consumer of bread and butter, I truly, it's been well said earlier. We fully support the university's efforts, and we feel like we vest our interest, or we vest our support and our interest in those who can really plan this out as best way possible. Without further ado, there's the student government president, who may share the same sentiments of bread and butter. Would you like to say anything?
Thank you, Senator Eda. It's wonderful to see that the students have that opportunity to be a part of this table. It shows that the university is going beyond its means to getting us involved and getting us to understand the situation we're in. I think some of the proposals that you're going to see today are what we will need in order to avoid a tuition increase. We were very fortunate to get unanimous support from this body just last fall. And we're looking for that same type of support, and I know it's going to take some deep critical thinking and maybe some creativeness, but ultimately I think we can come to a wonderful conclusion. Hopefully, with our participation today, we could see that we're doing the best we can to provide the students with as much as we could, considering what the situation the government's in today. I'll be here just to whisper to the good senators what we hope to get in case of anything, but I'm pretty sure based on the presentation today, the legislature will get a better understanding, and maybe we could get, if you have any questions, we'll be here for that. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and I very much appreciate the subtlety of the chairman's request and the numbers that he's thrown out, because he must have said it 5 or 6 times. But I want to say that on the jumping off the 60th anniversary, we've completed a series of events in which we've attempted to explain the value of the university to the island community and to the broader region. And I think all of us and all of us around the table certainly have a hand in that in one way or another. And I think the university serves the island community well, and in a number of areas. We are also mindful of the fact that we're in a financial situation that requires that we're not asking for anything that's dramatic. We're just asking basically for the same financial support, a little modification due to some increases that are mandated on us, including retirement benefits for employees, to deal with that, and of course to continue the kind of social contract understanding I believe that we should have with our students relative to how much of the burden they should be paying for their own education. The university is now spends about $100 million a year to provide the kinds of services, the kind of research, and the kind of education, degree programs, non-degree programs. If we were to calculate what the size of the University of Guam is relative to private companies, it would be one of the largest private companies on island. We have over 300 employees who are fully funded by external sources, in addition to the regular staff. So this is just it's an economic force of its own, and it has the potential to continue to be that economic force. It also has the potential to help build the economy through a kind of an opportunity to take some opportunities on with research and technology and research and development. So these are the kinds of things that we are motivated by. We understand that we have to be more agile, more entrepreneurial, more careful with the taxpayers' money. In higher ed, in American society, the changing dynamics of how higher education is funded has led to dramatic increases. There's been the national average is a 15% increase in tuition across the country in the past 2 years. There's been in some states as much as a 15 to 20% drop in state support for higher education. We're fortunate at the University of Guam because we haven't had that kind of experience, although the trajectory is clear, so the trend is clear. So even though it may vary a little bit from year to year, 2002 was the last year that the University of Guam got 50% of what it spent from a Government of Guam appropriation. Today, that figure is roughly a little bit over 30%. And so we understand that. So we're looking for ways to be able to deal with that. We think legislative fixes, even though we are no longer, the term of art is state-supported or government-supported. Now we're state-assisted. I think that's the term. In some institutions, they just have a kind of a nodding acquaintance now between the institution and the governing body. We still recognize, of course, that we exist because of the Government of Guam. We exist because of the Guam Legislature. We exist because of the thoughts and the collective wisdom of this body as it has existed through the years going back to the first Guam Legislature. So we're fully in awareness of that. We understand that we're in this kind of partnership. But times have changed. And so basically we're outlining a budget that's pretty simple. We're asking for 27.5 million general operations, which is approximately $800,000 higher than I believe that the governor's office has submitted. And we're asking for the continuation of 1.4 million tuition support, 3.8 million in student financial aid program. This includes the Yamashita Teacher Corps, and $500,000 for these two special appropriations that are managed by the University of Guam, Weary, and the hatchery only. As we go through the process, I just want to point out that our request, the variance from fiscal year 2012 to this year, is 3% in personnel, and that's largely due to merit increases and retirement share, which has been mandated upon us. Contracts, as an increase of 9%, $300,000, due to some information technology improvements and insurance. And we are able to, even in spite of the increase in utility bills, through conservation, we've been able to hold that steady. And we think that with some continual effort, we may be even to reduce it further. A slight uptick in capital outlay, just to provide the context for our fiscal environment going back to 2011. The rush of influx of cash that we got from ARA masked all the kinds of problems we had. And the problems were that we were continuing to just kind of go along at this stable level of funding, and then we were dealing with holdbacks, we were dealing with all the allotment irregularities and all those kinds of things that we were dealing with. A lot of that was masked by the fact that we had the availability of ARA funds, which totaled $17 million. Well, ARA funds are over, so now we're facing ARA-less situation. So this kind of provides us a series of new challenges. I believe all of us working together, we can overcome that. And the last slide. In order for the university to progress in a no-growth environment, the university seeks legislative support for some form of agility and adaptability. And of course, our first effort was directed at the Student Services Center and the Engineering Annex, and we're grateful that we believe that issue has been resolved now, and that that is now public law, and the USDA loan is proceeding as planned. And I believe that through that legislative process that we went through, we found ways to make sure that everyone's concerns were kind of allayed in the process, so that it wasn't a sudden rush to take out funds from the liquid fuel account. So we believe that this is, and again, building the Student Services Center and the Engineering Annex will allow us to meet the challenges of the future and continue to allow us to grow. The second item that we're concerned about is the tuition appropriation in lieu of rate increases to students. We're asking again, and the legislature was very generous in that last year. After the budget process was basically concluded, the legislature basically rescued the university. We're mindful of that. We're grateful for that. We're asking that you rescue us before the budget process is completed. Or you can rescue us afterwards, but we need to be rescued. So either way works for me. But of course it would make it easier if we knew in advance exactly what we were going to do. So this holds tuition at a relatively stable level. I've outlined this to the governor. I've outlined this to anyone who is someone maybe who went to college and is in their 40s and beyond, and almost as old as the university, or in my case older than the university. When we went to college, the tuition that we paid was probably paid for anywhere, depending on where you went, from 10 to at the most 25 to 30% of the actual cost of you going to school, because governments in those times made that arrangement. So today, absent any kind of tuition relief, we're asking basically the students at the University of Guam to pay more than 50% of their costs. I think that, and I mention this because I think that's the social contract that we have, is to try to figure out what is a kind of a benchmark figure we can say to a student who wants to go to the University of Guam, that if you go to the University of Guam, somewhere or other, we'll find a way to pay for at least 50% of the actual costs of your, because the tuition roughly pays about 50% of the actual cost of educating a student in the course of an academic year. So this is a really important item. We also have some proposals that have been discussed in some a little bit more specific form, but some general form with Speaker Wampat and others, and that is the reconfiguration of financial aid for student access and affordability. We want to kind of shift the management of specific programs and the way we manage financial aid so that we're actually providing the right incentives at the right time for students. This has been a very frustrating experience for the University of Guam. I'll give you an example of what typically happens for most students who go to a school, even a public school, a public university in the States. You apply, you fill out a FAFSA form. Then somewhere before you enroll that first semester, you get a letter from them, from the institution. And the letter outlines to you what you're eligible for in terms of federal assistance and what you're eligible for in terms of state assistance. So the student then knows. The system we have in place now doesn't allow us to do that because we don't know. And what we want is to be able to give that kind of flexibility so that the university, through the Board of Regents and through the AAA process, can outline what the rules and regs are for this so that a student can come in, apply for FAFSA, and then clearly knows before the beginning of the semester that they're going to get this much from Pell Grant and they're going to get this much from the government of Guam. Could be $1,000. And this could go to as many as 1,000 students. Under the current system that we use now, we're actually servicing less than 250 students through these programs because the programs are kind of all over the place in terms of the rules and the regulations. We're not going to do away with any, the nursing scholarship or the teacher scholarship. We're just going to be able to use some of this funding for this kind of general student assistance, and this will allow people to have a more predictable experience, financial experience at the university. Right now, a student who starts at the University of Guam as a freshman at the end of 6 years. Now, this is a national average, is that it takes a typical student nationally 6 years to complete a BA or BS. A student today who starts as a freshman at the University of Guam will, at the end of 6 years, 25%, roughly 1/4, will have completed a bachelor's degree. If they make it through that first year, there's a big drop-off rate. If they make it through that first year, as a sophomore, the rate goes up to 50%. So if you're tracking it from being sophomore on, part of that is the financial aid that they're receiving. They finally wake up to the realities of the financial situation they're in. Part of it is they're not ready to go to a university, and part of it is that, maybe they had other plans or life takes over. But a big part of that is a financial aid situation. So we're hoping to be able to get the flexibility to deal with that. The third item is a request to have management over a tract of land, which is called Lot 5397. And I'll just basically outline it. This is an area here that's below the cliff line from the university. It was originally intended to be given to the university, but through some kind of mix-up, it just went to the government of Guam. And so now it's a conservation area. I've talked to the people at Parks and Recreation and Department of Agriculture, and they indicated that they're in support of the idea. We'll keep it as a conservation area, except that if you look the land, it kind of goes around those housing areas that are developed down there, and when you go down towards the Marine Lab. So what we're proposing is to give the university title to that land. The total acreage of the land is about 168 acres, and maybe 6 or 7 acres of that is behind this area, adjacent to Weary and adjacent to the Marine Lab. That's an area that we want to, it's already, kind of beyond conservation purposes. That's an area that we want to expand maybe research services and researcher services, including the housing of researchers. So that's an opportunity right there that we want extended to the university. Of course, the balance of it will remain a conservation area, and we would like to be able to build some trails and fully explore the possibilities that are associated with this. This is the probably the best limestone forest remaining on the island. It's it's got lots of azuzu there, so we don't want to disturb them. We just want to eat them. And the last part is the Research Corporation of the University of Guam. This is a little bit more complex. This is as the University of Guam tries to become more competitive, one of the things is that federal sources are drying up. And so one of the things is that as we try to develop an infrastructure to compete for grants and contracts so that we can have the ability to hire people in the terms of the contract and procure services and equipment in terms of the contract, do it on a timely basis, and so then we get the contract, we move the project along, we finish the project, and then we move to the next one. And right now, given the kinds of rules and regs that we're dealing with, it's a little bit cumbersome. It's not impossible. We've had moderate success, but in this newer environment, it's not likely to be as successful as in the past. I would point out that over 200 universities have research corporations of one kind or another, and this is a very commonly used vehicle in order to be able to deal with that. So, ladies and gentlemen of the legislature, that's our presentation, and we'll be happy to entertain any questions. We have a number of people here who can, who are certainly more expert than I am in the complexities of the university, so we're eager to engage in a conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Underwood. As I've stated earlier, is that the staff, of course, of OFB have done an analysis of the budget, and that was also done for the university, and I would go through some of the analysis for the benefit, of course, of our members here who don't, have the entire budget before them. So the University of Guam submitted its budget request, which includes $27.5 million for general operations plus $1.4 million in order to forego a 10% tuition increase. $3.8 million for student financial aid, inclusive of the student financial aid program and the Yamashita Teacher Corps, and of course $0.5 million for Weary Hydrological Survey and water monitoring, and the Aquaculture Development and Training Center, for a total of $33.2 million in Government of Guam funds. The executive budget request aims to appropriate a slightly lesser amount for general operations in the amount of $26.6 million, and does not include the $1.4 million appropriation to forego the UOG's planned 10% tuition increase. So, and the committee, of course, looked and started to compare fiscal year 2012 authorized level and 2013 executive budget request. It shows that there is a minimal of 40,125 increase over 2012 authorized levels, which is mainly attributed to $400,125 increase appropriation for the administration of the Guam Cancer Trust Fund, which is funded through the Healthy Futures Fund. The operational appropriation in 2012, which is inclusive of $1.3 million additional appropriation from the legislature to avoid a student tuition increase, was decreased by $360,000. So although there was a total increase in appropriations to UOG, there was a larger decrease in the operational budget requirements for fiscal year 2013. So in the executive request, compared to what the 2012 is that the executive request was for operations, which is the operation appropriation, inclusive of all additional appropriations, is $26,688,064. And that is slightly, again, lower when we looked at the difference of $360,000. For all of these areas, such as the Yamashita Educator Corps, Student Financial Aid Program, Aquaculture Development and Training Center, WERI, the Hydrologic Survey, WERI Resource Monitoring Program, Soil and Water Conservation District, Rhinoceros Beetle Program, KPRG, all those, and the Guampedia Foundation, a lump sum request was provided, and that was $4,641,783. And then there's a separate amount, which is UOG Capital Improvement Fund of $500,000. Of course, if you look at the authorized level of 2012, it was $33,611,770. The executive request is $33,651,895,000. Therefore, the difference is $40,125. This is the analysis that I wanted to show. Did you want to say that?
No, I'm just trying to figure out.
No, right there. Oh, yeah, 40,000, sorry, 125, one extra zero.
400,000.
Yes, 40,000. So the UOG budget submission included requests for general operations, student financial aid programs, Yamashita Corps, Aquaculture Development and Training, WERI, Water Resource, Northern and Southern Soil Water Conservation at $33.2 million. Additionally, KPRG submitted a budget letter separate, which included $89,000 budget requests. But because it falls under the budget, and the way we've done this is that they all are lumped under the University of Guam. So the appropriations then, your total appropriation is 28.8, of course, which includes the 1.3 for the tuition hike. So I just wanted to really make that clear. However, now in the request, everything that you requested for those other individual projects were the same as 2012. However, you did not include a request for Guampedia and for the rhinoceros beetle program. Do you know whether anyone there has submitted a separate request for them?
Well, our understand, of course, we support the Guampedia program, but our understanding is that that program is kind of funded separately and it's housed with us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not technically, we're not running the program, so that's why it's not included in our own budget submission. That's the.
All right. Now, so the capital improvement project, of course, comes from the Guam Highway Fund.
Mhm.
And then, of course, the administration of the Guam Cancer Fund, which amounts to $2.3 million in additional appropriations, is not in your budget submission.
That's correct.
Okay, so
Again, of course, we're happy to have the programs, but they're not technically. In other words, we don't deal with them as one lump appropriation where we're able to move money around. So we just deal with them as separate.
So in this case, then, when you really look at the breakdown where it is a lump sum, and in your earlier presentation, of course, is that there is that request to lump these programs, at least for the student financial aid.
Right.
Will you then be able, based on the budget submission from the executive branch, actually putting all those programs that I read to you earlier under one lump sum? Remember I read to you earlier,
Right,
it came
yeah.
out to $4.6 million, all of these other programs.
You know, our focus is usually, I don't know how to answer that. I think the answer is no. Oh, sorry. I believe the answer is no, but our focus usually in the presentation to the legislature is on the general ops. That's the bulk of the budget, and on the student financial aid, and then on the special appropriations. So, you know, our analysis of that difference is, as the president earlier said, about 800,000 difference in the general ops side, and about, well, he doesn't have anything on the 1.4 million for to help defray the tuition. And then it's about 200,000, I believe, for the rest that we're over, which is mainly in the financial aid side of the program.
I think you know, we want to keep the integrity of those programs. We appreciate. Obviously we're happy to have the programs, but the programs are not considered part of our operating costs, our operating revenues, and our operating expenditures. And I just want to make that clear, as opposed to the well, student financial aid is also separate, but you know, these are kind of extra programs which the university has been assigned, and we're happy that they're assigned to us.
So, I mean, so...
But I don't, you know, so under that suggested approach, the programs would still be separately managed, and they'll still have their own individual integrity.
But all I'm saying, of course, in the analysis when we received the request from the executive side was that, those were all, we're not assigned a specific dollar amount, but when we saw that the numbers were identical, then in essence, you know, the analysis was to go ahead and reinstate what your current funding is, and if that's how you prefer that be broken down, then that could be. So if you just take, you know, every single one of the programs that I mentioned, with the exception of the capital improvement, that they would be reflected then in the new fiscal request. You would prefer that be done that way rather than a lump sum.
Yes, we would.
Okay.
And you know, it of course it makes it look like we're getting more money. You lump them all together. So it's like some people say, it's all in the presentation.
And in the presentation, I'm concerned that the public is going to be misinformed, and I'll be expecting a whole series of emails in a few minutes, because there has to be an extra zero here, or someplace here there's a mistake. How much is it costing, or how much are you requesting to administer the Cancer Trust Fund? They have it written here as 400,125,000, and
As an increase.
and I'm trying to figure, is it the Cancer Trust Fund or the Cancer Research Center that you guys are doing? Because
Trust.
I understand you keep saying that, but I'm asking them, because they can't possibly be spending
No, costs
$400,000.
costs us next to nothing. I don't
I
think
understand.
it's
So
all an
that's why I'm
additional
saying
service.
there's got to be something wrong, because I don't want people to say that we gave it to the university and the university is.
Yeah.
This,
I think if
Okay.
we're provided,
no, this is an analysis, of course, done by OFB.
It's an OFB report.
No, wait,
Madam
okay,
Speaker, it's an OFB report.
wait.
Okay. According to, we have 118,000 administration fee for the cancer grant. 18,000. Is that right? And what percentage of that? What's the percentage? It's 7.5% or something like that, isn't it? See? Yeah. Sure. Could be.
Oh, sorry. Hi, John Peterson. Yes, well, I'm on the Cancer Trust Fund Council, but our office, the Sponsored Programs Office, is administering the program for the council on behalf of the president. So, basically, when the original rules were set up, and in fact in the legislation there was a 10% of the fund was set aside for the administration of the fund. And I think it's important to realize that when we get grant funds, for example, we usually allocate an indirect fee, which covers the cost of administrating these programs, and 10% of this is considerably less than the normal indirect fee that we receive for federal grants and contracts. So, if you look at it in the light of that, no, it's not 400. The amount that was authorized for the current year is 118,000, and we haven't expended more than half of that at this point. It includes a staff member, it includes startup to get the whole support for the council, and that kind of thing. Sir, I don't know where the 400 comes from.
I wanted to get that clear, because I know that there are families out there that have been trying to get funds. And if word gets out that we're spending $400,000 for administration, the three of us will be hanging off the cliffside.
Yeah, understood. No, the money's out there. It's working in the community now for cancer victims and
I
their
understand,
families.
but I'm just saying that though we may have authorized up to 10%, I was insistent with Sarah to make sure that we ran it as frugally as possible, because the money should be spent for patients, not for employment.
Understood, yes.
And if it's going to cost that much, we might as well give it to somebody else to handle, because it's just not, that was not the intent. And this amount, and in this whole analysis, something's wrong, because I don't know where that number's coming from, and it's throwing off your numbers here. But I want it clear, we're not spending $400,000 for the
Absolutely not.
administration.
Absolutely not. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Because my phone's already buzzing.
All right. Well, don't give him my number.
Well, what I read off was not saying that you're spending $400,000. What I read off in the analysis, of course, is the authorized level is 1.4. The executive request is 1.8. The difference is the 400,000. That's all that I'm reading off. So I'll just, I'm going to go ahead and ask two more questions, then I'll open it up for the other members. So when I was looking at your presentation here, if you go to page 5, your request was 43.1 for 12, and then your request for and the appropriation you said was 41.3. There was a difference of about 1.8 million. Was this due to a 15% holdback, or you just, that's all you have, the allotment that you've received?
In the FY12 reapportionment, that includes the 26.7 that we received from General Ops, the 1.4 for the appropriation from PL 31-126. The student tuition, which is through our own tuition that we have now, the 190 a credit. The matching funds is through the feds, and the 200,000 is I'm not sure exactly what that is. Oh, that's entrepreneurial efforts that we have through our Lifelong Learning Center. So this is just our general operations revenues. Yeah. That doesn't include, the answer is it doesn't include the holdback,
okay.
no.
So did the university get a 15% reserve holdback?
Indeed, $4 million.
Okay, it's $4 million. Has it affected your operations?
What I asked, go ahead. The answer is yes. It's very hard to absorb $4 million. The good news, if there is good news, is we knew about it in October. So we planned our financial controls to, survive throughout the year. So we immediately implemented internally a control on our own expenditures, which included deferred hiring, included cutbacks in some of the operational expenses. It included some speed up of the conservation efforts that we have going. And as the President earlier said, the impact would be quite severe, except that we've had the ERA funds to cover much of the equipment we needed to purchase, as well as much of the deferred maintenance we needed to spend on the buildings that we have. So right now, if you were to ask me what the impact is, it's quite severe, mitigated by ERA. We made it so we believe we will still be a balanced budget towards the end of the year. Can we use that $4 million back? Definitely we could use that $4 million back. We need to hire additional staff and faculty for the upcoming semester. We have quite a lot of deferred maintenance that we still need to do. For example, one of the big ones is we need to re-air condition the agriculture building. That's about $1.5 million. So there's still a significant impact given that holdback.
Can the university operate with the governor's budget request without the need for an additional tuition increase?
No.
Okay. Vice Speaker, any questions?
I'm glad you spoke about the tuition and the need to try to keep the. I'm still at loss as to why, when we were discussing 437, there was so much opposition to my request to put in a provision that prohibited or prevented a tuition increase as a result of the building. And though you kept assuring me that the building was not going to result in a tuition increase, there was major pushback, and I was even shocked that the two students were in support of your position, and I know that some of them had to face some of their fellow students about that request. And I'm you're asking for 1.4 in this request, in this appropriation, but you wouldn't allow me to put into 437 a proviso to make sure that the tuition didn't go up as a result of those buildings.
Thank you for raising that, Senator. Of course, we're not members of the legislature, so it wasn't us that didn't allow you to do that. That was the body. I want to point out that the reason why we had a concern over that is there's really only two entirely unrestricted sources of revenue for the university: the Government of Guam operations, general operations, and the tuition. And so it wasn't a question that we were not mindful of student needs. It was a question of that, you know, ultimately under the most disastrous event occurring, which there may be in the future, and we'd all kind of went through that process. What if this happened? What if that happened? Well, at the end of the day, the university is going to be left holding the bag, and it will be if something happens. It has to rely on the two sources of unrestricted revenue. So that's the answer to it. I certainly understand the motivation behind it, and I think it's very defensible. But you know, just as it's really a question of the ability to manage and have some administrative flexibility in it. And it's certainly not our intent to raise tuition and then ask students to earmark it for certain buildings, although that happens regularly in many universities. And sometimes they'll put it in front of the student body, you know, and they'll have a vote on it. So there's all different ways to work that. But I don't certainly understand the motivation for it, and I know it put our colleagues here in the regents and my fellow president here in a little bit of a hot spot, because it looked like they were taking a slightly unfriendly position for students. But in reality, it's you know, it was just simply the administrative flexibility to deal with something that in an unforeseen situation, especially as the buildings get underway. But given the support that we got in the legislature, other than that, I don't think we'll ever get to that point.
The other thing that I was intrigued, you mentioned that the 3.8 that we get for
student SFAP, student financial aid.
Yes, student financial aid assists 250 students.
No, it's 562.
562. I misspoke.
Okay. Of that number, 562-468-250. Okay.
Well, I misspoke.
Well, no, I know. I'm trying to figure out what the number is.
Okay. It's 564. Those are the recipients.
Of that number, how many of them are engineering students?
Pre-engineering? None that I know of.
None?
None that I know of.
There may be some.
There may be, but they're not. I don't.
There's no targeted.
There's no targeted group of engineering students to give scholarships to.
The point that I was trying to get to, and I appreciate you sharing this, the point that I was trying to get to is that though I'm not attempting, with all due respect, to try to micromanage the university, I'm just trying to understand the decision for an engineering school. I mean, I fully understand that in preparation for the build-up and a few other things, that we need to have an engineering school. But I'm trying to figure out how many are we assisting in sending away under the ProTech or the financial assistance, so that you would know how many you're planning on having in the school. I mean, it would seem to me if there was only 14 students in 4 years of schooling that are engineering, that though it may be nice to have an engineering school, you might not be able to fill it. Would it not be cheaper to send them away than to build a whole new building for them? What stats do you guys have that you would have 250 students to signed up in this school to underwrite the operation and the building of this new campus?
Well, I think under the most ambitious scenario that we're talking about, we'll probably talk about graduating maybe 15 to 20 engineers a year after it's fully functional. So it's not really, it's never going to reach that scale. We're targeting 6 classrooms, 4 labs. The value of the engineering school, beyond the degrees that we're granting, is obviously tied to the fact of the whole way we do construction on the island and the whole way we do our engineering our infrastructure, so that at the end of the day, the labs are of service to the community. We'll be able to do even like the right asphalt mixing, which we had problems on the last couple of years because we don't have the engineering labs. So the School of Engineering is more than just the degree programs. But out of the reality is that what we did find out is that in the past 5 years, over 70 students who were participants in the pre-engineering program, out of those over 70 students that went off island to graduate, only less than 10 came back. So the problem for us is twofold. One is every time a student goes off island to go to school, only 1 or 3 comes back. So we congratulate the ones that come back, but that's the reality. So when you calculate how much resources you're going to devote to this, we have the opportunity probably in the course, not just in anticipation of the build-up, but just in the anticipation of infrastructure improvements. Probably over the course of the next 15 years, 50% of our infrastructure, of our physical infrastructure as an island, is going to be refurbished or redone. And we want to know, is this an investment that the island wants to put so that the engineers that are going to be working on that infrastructure, A, come from here, B, have a long-term commitment to this place, and will make sure that the infrastructure that we have will kind of match the situation that we inhabit. So it's more expensive, admittedly. It's more expensive to educate an engineering student than it would be to educate most majors. It's more expensive to educate a nurse than it is most students. But we've made a commitment to try to meet the needs of the society. So, of course, when the build-up was first proposed in its form, we were getting wild figures, like there was going to be the need for 500 engineers over the course of the next 10 years. Well, that's a heck of a lot of engineers. Well, now, what is the real need for engineers, and what is the mixture of engineers that we're going to get that are going to be from here, going to be from the region, and also the possibility of international enrollment, which will also infuse revenue into the university. So there's all that kind of mixture. But it's a modest effort. I don't want people to think that we're all of a sudden going into electrical engineering and that we're going to go into mechanical engineering and structural engineering. We're going into civil engineering with an emphasis on environmental engineering. It's a modest program. We're anticipating that once it's fully functioning, we're graduating 15 to 20 engineers a year. Is that going to, are all those people going to find positions on the island? Probably not, maybe not, but at least more local people will be finding the positions on the island than currently exist with the number that we send off and don't come back.
There has, over the last 40 years, been an industry, or 50 years now, an industry that has sustained this community, the tourism industry. And I've been critical about the university and its preparation for addressing the needs of the tourist industry. Has the university made a similar investment to preparing for addressing the needs of the tourist industry as it relates to Russian, Chinese speakers, and just the tourism industry in general? I mean, it is the main wheel in this community, and I'm wondering what kind of investment we've made to address that need. I mean, I'm glad that we've had one local person be the GM of a major hotel, one has moved on, but I'm just trying to figure out how many have we trained out of the university that can and have taken management positions, top management positions in the hotel industry on this island.
Well, I think that's an issue that's connected not just to the university and its preparation for management in these areas, but it's also related to how the managers are handled in the tourism industry. Let me offer this as an alternative for that, and maybe Dean Enriquez would like to take on this question. When tourism began 40 years ago, our model for dealing with that, not only as an educational institution, and in general, even our K through 12 system, was to find people to work in the tourism trade. And, you know, we've had moderate success in that. You know, lots of people work in tourism. By hook or by crook, they work in tourism. The issue for us is that we are now on the precipice of working with the growth of China as a society and as an economic force in this part of the world. So what we have done strategically as a university is we're partnering with Chinese universities to work towards student exchanges and faculty exchanges. This is something we didn't do 40 years ago. So when the economic force came upon us, primarily from Japan, we were stuck with an economic model that was primarily devised and managed and operated by people from Japan. That was the model that we had. So now we have the opportunity through these partnerships with Chinese universities to reverse that model, so that we're sending some of our students, even if, and I'm willing to sit here and say, you know, over the course of the next 5 years, we should send 25 students to a collaborative agreement with a Chinese university so that they go there and they do more than learn Chinese. They learn how the Chinese economy works. And then when they come back here and they get a joint degree, they become our negotiators for how this new economy is going to work here. I can tell you, as we sit here today, there are 35 FSM students going to Chinese universities on full scholarship, and they're going to be ahead of us in this game. And so the question for us, now for specific to tourism, there are some schools that, you know, for example, in Hawaii, which of course is tourism based, they have basically shifted away from having a specific school of tourism industry management because, you know, in general, while we have an emphasis on tourism and the accountants and the entrepreneurs and the business majors are working in those areas, I think we basically want them to have the flexibility to go to other areas as well. But
as it relates to the Chinese, how many are at Chinese universities right now?
None. No, we just started talking to them last.
Who from the university is going with the delegation tomorrow to Russia?
Kathleen Moreland.
Okay. Because when I was up there, I spoke to the Far East and set up the arrangement, and I'm glad that you guys are doing that because I want that exchange, because as many of you may have known by Lee's article, I was detained at the airport because, and it was a good thing that we had one person who was in business here who knew how to speak Russian and protected me, but I'd still be in some gulag at this point if he wasn't there. So
don't
I'm just
tempt
saying,
people. Я хочу говорить по-русски.
And so I'm just saying we need to be ready for them, and every day we send resolutions to the states wanting Chinese tourists here, but would we be able to handle them? And even when we were in Vladivostok, just to even try to figure out how to deal with them, I mean to speak to them, fortunately we had one business person who speaks Russian.
Yeah.
And we're just, what's the university doing in preparation?
I want to just pull that apart a little bit, because the one element of like finding people to teach Russian and finding people to teach Mandarin and getting them up in their language skills is one element. And so that's, and having the kind of short-term training. And that's what Kathleen Moreland's working on through the PIP programs. It's a kind of entrepreneurial. But like the longer term, how do we deal with this new factor in our economy that's where we're talking about, now we're making an investment in students actually going there and in working in exchange programs. So we've started that process. We have agreements with 3 universities in China to do exactly that. That's the point. And of course, we have a pending agreement which we'll probably sign with Far Eastern, thanks to your efforts, Senator.
Senator Yamashita.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Welcome, everybody, to your legislature. We're very happy that you're here with us to discuss. Congratulations on 60 years. I think the celebrations have really brought forward to the community all that has been accomplished through all your hard work, and we truly appreciate the continued leadership. Do you know, Mr. O'Brien, if your reserve is going to be released?
We don't know, but at this moment we haven't received any word that they're going to release it.
How much exactly is in your reserve?
Exactly, I'm not sure. It's about $4 million.
$4 million. In the last time we did this, I was concerned about it seeming the lack of common numbers, or what the front is forwarding for you and what you're representing. And I just wonder, do you meet before you come? And do they just adjust and you just adjust, or how does with Bureau Budget?
We have discussions with them, but we just received their budget. We don't have really that much input into it, although we did meet with them prior to their preparation of it.
Yes, in keeping with that, we did meet with the governor, and we did meet with BBMR. So, we basically outlined where we thought we were going to go, but of course, we're an agency unto ourselves, so, they take those numbers and they must crunch them in a different way, but that's why you're here.
I just wonder, because as Governor Calvo represents, right, the operations of the government, I would hope that some kind of consensus is arrived at.
Yeah, we do talk, so that part's there. Consensus, we didn't reach consensus.
I have 2 major areas that I'd like to speak to, and one is, first, thank you very much for recruiting and identifying our new dean of the School of Education. I see him in the audience, and I welcome Dr. Lan, and we are very hopeful. What is the condition of the School of Education, of the building itself? Are we ready to move back in?
We're already back in now, just recently, though, yes.
So do you think this air conditioning system will actually work this time?
It's a thorough revamping of it, so we've even got into some of the duct work, so that's hopefully it'll be better this time. I think the changes we made in the past were to some of the external gear, but now we've gotten behind and up into the walls, and I think that'll make a difference.
That's really good to hear, because I think this is the 3rd chilling system that has gone in there. It's been, and the maintenance is in place for that as well. Good. And so it was the most enjoyable presidential forum yesterday with the presidents, and I truly appreciate it. And we talked about economic development. We talked about social change. And I had to leave just as the president from Virgin Islands and Dr. Franquez started talking to what I was really interested in, and that was really the development of human capital. And I've raised this before, and we don't need to have a huge conversation on it, but I really do believe that as we talk about schools and ways to prepare for, further tourism, and ways that the world is trending about who wants to visit Guam, or how we can learn from China, or the Chinese are taking over, or anything like that. I really ask that we really think about the first 8 years of our life. As we talk about the social fray that's going on throughout our community, as right now every 2 weeks one of us kills ourselves, a third of our population is on some kind of social assistance. We talk about the concern about the number of people who are not graduating from high school. Our abuse rates are just atrocious. And when you read the research, and I know you have, we do know that if we invest in the first 8 years of our life in high-quality early childhood, a lot of those issues can be addressed. And for me, that's really a way to address economic development, human capital development. And so I'm just going to leave that, and I do hope that our incoming dean will really think about that. I know it's a huge investment, and I know that's why it was shut down in the past. And when that was shut down by that particular president, I had implored him not to do that, to reconsider. Because every dollar that we invest in early childhood, we get $5 to $8 back. And that's just a fact. And GCC shut down their lab school as well, and I know I'm being told that we're going to partner, we should partner with the community. And if that's a plan, I would love to see that. But I do know that in CNAS we now have one faculty member. I know Dr. Titan was really focusing on child development, and I appreciate that. And I know that Guam Cedars has just recruited Dr. Felicity, and I can't pronounce her last name. But I know that she's in early childhood as well. And so for me, it's hopeful. But I really think as we talk about social change, as we talk about social contracts, and as we celebrated what you have brought forth in the last 60 years, I'm really concerned about what's going to happen in the next 60 years, because the human capital element on our island is of great concern. It just is. There are some of us who know how to raise our children. There are some of us who know how to deal with diversity. But I suggest to you that there are many more of us who do not know how. And we're pushing people away, and we're punishing people because they are different, and it is wrong. And I would like the University of Guam to be a strong leader in this area to say, we can do this better. And so I look forward to meeting with the new dean on this issue and having those kinds of conversations. The other area that I'm wondering, that I will ask, because I don't know, is in our College and Natural and Applied Sciences. I have more and more been interested in this whole world of natural resources, because I really think that's a potential economic engine for our island and the region. And so I'm wondering, do they have the kind of budget support that is needed to continue to provide the kind of leadership that is needed to our farmers, for agriculture, for aquaculture? Are they in a good place?
They're in a great place, right, Dr. Udine? No, actually, they're in a good place amongst the colleges, because they also have, through the land grant network, access to a lot more external funding than perhaps some other units. But the whole issue of economic development and its connection to trying to figure out, if we're going to have a research and development center, and we're going to do science patents, and we're going to do business patents, and we're going to do business incubators, and we're going to do renewable energy, these are things that are that are going to be science-based. So we're very hopeful, and of course we collaborate with the Guam Community College in some of those areas, and we're hopeful that DOE continues on with its plans to refurbish GW to kind of become a STEM high school. And if that all comes to pass, then it becomes, that whole area changes its focus, and it becomes a different, it'll have a different feel to it. But quite obviously, they are key to. We're working in process with them also, funding from the National Science Foundation for EPSCoR, which is to allow us to do research as a fledgling institution that has the potential to bring in $2 to $3 million a year. So we've been working on that proposal for about a year and a half now. So we have many good things ahead.
I really appreciate that, the whole vision. We are articulating well with the Guam Community College as far as taking their credits and applying it to...
There are very few issues there, but I will tell you this, that this is the model between GCC and UOG, of course, is a very common model between a community college and state college anywhere. There's supposed to be a good articulation, and there is, and there's transfer. But because we're almost co-located, students have their own transfer plan. So because they can go to one and take one class in GCC, and they can take another class at UOG later on in the day. They have because of the fact that we're almost co-located, they're able to do that, and they do that on a wide number of bases. Some of it is financial, some of it is related to the instructors because some of the courses are similar or the same. So there's all these issues kind of going on, and so in that regard, I'd rather leave students alone than tell them, no, you can't do this, or no, you can't do that, because students are going to, at the end of the day, be the best arbiters of their own future.
And I think that's great, respect for the choice issue. But I also wonder if higher education should be one system. If indeed, since we are co-located, so to speak, perhaps we really only need one administrative force. And so that's something.
So what are we going to do? Junk impo for it?
We're going to talk it out and see how we can make this work. And I've talked to President Okada about that, and I've talked to you about that. I just think we don't need a duplication of human resource efforts and so forth. We just
and some of that is related to the kind of the junior college, senior college model. But some of it too is GCC has a. I always think that GCC has a more expansive mission, because the statistic that sticks out in my mind the most is that a high school, when most of us around the table, except for these two gentlemen, graduated from high school, they were saying that we were going to change jobs 7 or 8 times in the course of our life. Today's high school student's going to change their job 22 to 23 times in the course of their life. This means that they're going to be retraining. They're going to be, they change jobs like they change cell phones. They're going to be doing things, and they're going to be engaged in a lifelong enterprise that's going to involve UOG, but more likely involve GCC. So they have they have a lot on their plate too.
Thank you, Dr. Underwood, for your leadership, and for all of you. Living within your means and still driving some very good things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Medini, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I really enjoyed the 60th anniversary presidential forum. I think a lot of the messages that came out of that forum resonated with many of us. One thing that really jumped out at me was what we hear constantly, especially now that we're in the midst of budget, is the whole notion of performance-based budgeting. And I believe it was your keynote speaker who pointed out that we should not only be focusing on enrollment, but actual completers or completion, because they're the ones that are going to be driving our economic engine when they enter our workforce. So I'm hoping that maybe in the next budget cycle we could maybe do a better job in seeing how that formula kicks in into our economy. I would like to hear a little bit more about some of the entrepreneurial endeavors that the university has. I know that, again, your speaker had pointed out a lot of the universities around the nation are now looking at other areas like alumni, raising funds, alumni. Gosh knows I get that all the time from my previous universities. So could you expand upon that, and how is that coming along for the university, and how is that being utilized?
Well, in terms of our fundraising and our connection to the alumni, I think we've really energized it quite well. The previous performance of the University of Guam is that less than 1% of the alumni give. And part of it is that they're not asked, or a lot of it is that, people who go to the university think of it as a government agency. If you want more money, why don't we just go down to the legislature and tell them to give you more money, and that'll solve all your issues, So that's one. But I think we've had a lot of high-energy alumni events. And for the first time we had at one alumni event, we had 15 alumni make a commitment right there to give $1,000 each, which was a significant watershed for us. So we have a target to try to get 1,000 alumni to give $1,000 each, and so that's our target in that regard. in terms of just the work with the foundation, the Alumni Association and the foundation are, both sort of independent of the university. And so, they're working hard on different activities. We have a $30 million capital campaign. If we're successful at this, we could rebuild the whole campus for the 21st century without ever asking for government money again. And so that's the good news on that. And we're making good, solid progress on that. A lot of people we're going to announce a couple of $1 million gifts here over the next few months. So, we're really happy, and people are getting enthusiastic, and, the high energy of the 60th anniversary events has helped focus some of that. So we think we're doing okay. We're not, Princeton or Yale, where, 30% of their alumni is giving every year. And the average for a state university is 8 or 9%, but for the University of Guam, it's been very low. And people just, they just, you walk around the island, you ask people, where'd you go to school? They say, oh, I went to JFK. I said, I thought you graduated from the University of Guam. Oh yeah, I went there too. So the whole notion of strong identification with the university in that regard is not as pronounced as it would be now. There's all kinds of theories about that, ranging from, you need fraternity houses to football team. And I'm thinking, oh no, more headaches. I figure we'll just go out and ask them. But so there's all those things that are part and parcel of it. But I think we have a team that's doing very well in that regard.
Okay, yes, and I want to commend that team and the
Yeah,
leadership.
well, that's Norm.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's Norm Analista and for the Alumni Affairs, and Mark Mendiola for the endowment.
And I also noticed that there's a 9% increase in the request focused on IT, and I think it was IT and insurance. There's a 9% increase. Where's that in the budget sheet? Contracts, under contracts. Could you expand on that? And the reason why I asked that is, again, it was brought up again at the forum about the importance of digitization, and where's the university with that? And that's on page...
I have it, Senator.
Okay.
I can address that
Sure.
if you'd like. That's about $300,000 or $400,000. 250 of that is our anticipation in discussions with our insurance brokers about our property insurance. So, they just feel with the shifting patterns in El Niño and La Niña that this could be a bit of a year, and they've suffered losses as an industry. So we're thinking we're going to see a increase in property rates. We hope we don't, but we might. The rest of it is to really address your question is we have quite a large project that we've funded for bringing in new IT development to the university. We call it overall the eWorks project. It has a number of manifestations. For example, we went to thank you. I was trying to avoid the feedback. We have a student retention system that we put in. We have a student grading system that we just put in. We just have a portal that's coming due. We've made some great efforts in our online learning programs. We have a online recruitment system that we're about to put in. We have an imaging system that's next on the list. And we've done quite a lot of work in rebuilding the IT infrastructure at the computer center. A number of new servers, a number of new physical bits of infrastructure like air conditioning and underfloor wiring and fire suppression and things like that. I think one of the most exciting things we're about to do, and I was just talking to Dr. Nguyen just before this session, and he's about ready to release something where we're going to be able to push down to the cell phones of the students almost anything that we can deliver to them on a terminal. It's called MOX, Mobile Online Exchange. I'm not sure what the what it is. So that's a real big effort for us. Right now, it's still internal to the university. We're still testing it on our own cell phones, but we hope to release that pretty soon, and that'll be great because it'll really anything like the web advisor or the registration or the online learning schedule courses, things like that, your account, your access into the university portal. Yeah. So we're making quite a lot of strides, making a lot of investment. The way that plays out in the budget, besides the capital expense, which is what we've identified already, we have about additional couple $100,000 in new IT licenses that we have in maintenance that we have to purchase to go along with that capital investment. So that's what you're seeing in our operating budget.
And related to that, just a couple questions. One, the ability to connect maybe with DOE and GCC, if we in fact are trying to prepare them to enter college so that they can meet their career goals. How is that connected? And the second question has to do with, talks about digitizing textbooks. Is that something that's tied into that to help save costs for students?
Okay, I'll do the digitized text. We haven't made much progress yet on the digitized text. We are bringing in a bookstore type of a consultant probably in the fall to help us look at some of the offerings that are out there, some of the programs that we can use. Yes, we're aware, particularly as we go more into online learning, that we're going to have to do something much different on the text side, but we're not there yet, unfortunately.
Yes, and also in line with that, you know, because textbooks are a kind of a cash cow for a lot of academics, so they're resisting this effort toward digitization. But again, the students have figured this out on their own a lot, and again, they have their own plan for buying textbooks. So sometimes they're a little bit ahead of us. On the issue of tying into GCC and DOE, we had raised this issue. One unique idea that I hope that you know, the real driver of this would be the superintendent, and that is to have portable student academic records, so that you know, you don't have a CUME folder that just stays, that basically through a system UOG, GCC, and DOE will actually keep one set of academic records, or at least have the opportunity to communicate with students, because this way we can you know, email a student in the 7th grade and say, you know, you need algebra if you want to go to college. And so to have the opportunity to set up that communication system and then to give academic advice, this is a possibility. So it's like looking at academic records. I think the way we look at medical records, you know, this is something that follows you. Of course, it's lifelong learning. It's for the person who's going to change their job 22, 23 times for the rest of their life. It's having the exchange network, which we're also exploring at the university, on how to give people college credit for a wide variety of experiences, and then getting them to get to that degree completion, which I think, Senator Mabini, your question on completion is exactly on target, because, you know, for a couple of decades now we've been focused on access. How do people get access to higher education? Well, apparently lots of people have access now. It's getting its completion that's a bigger issue, and so that's the way we structure our incentives. And the way we're able to manage our financial aid, which is why, you know, even when I remember we were doing the hearing on Senator Dueñas's bill, is that one of the things that you know, if we make changes in student financial aid, is that if a student starts at the university and finishes in 4 years, we give them the diploma and a $1,000 check at the same time, because they finished in you know, in time. Then, you know, if you finish in 6 years, you just get a diploma and a handshake. But, you know, anything that kind of increases that the context for success. But that's an ongoing issue. Okay. And I want to acknowledge Senator Guthertz. You know, she's the most distinguished alumna of the University of the Philippines on Island, and the president asked for you specifically. I want you to know that.
First, I want to congratulate the university community and you as Mr. President for such a wonderful celebration. And I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I apologize. I was sick, and I'm still recovering. And it broke my heart that I could not be there to meet the president, who I knew when I was in college there. He was a student also. And also to be with the university community to celebrate the wonderful event that was organized. You folks just did a tremendous job. I also want to commend Dr. Yamashita for all of her work with her mother and Mrs. Sanchez in acknowledging our former presidents as co-sponsors of the celebration. I mean, it was just a magnificent thing, very well put together. Of course, I always expect university to do things right. I'm okay now. You know, I had a little experience, but I'm okay now, and I hope to be back in full swing of things, Madam Speaker. May I make one comment, though? In looking at entrepreneurial ways to generate money for the university, you know, I often thought that I know the university has some properties. I know that the university campus itself was expanded. You were given additional land with the approval of the legislature a number of years ago. And they were talking about building of certain buildings in those areas. This is the area fronting, I think, the Arts and Science Complex, the Science Complex across the road. And I always thought, wouldn't it be a great thing as a revenue-generating opportunity for the university to build faculty condominiums like the Twin Towers and lease those to faculty as long as they're part of the university community, or even sell them to the faculty as long as they are part of the university community, but with the condition that when they decide that they don't want to live there anymore, that they have to sell it back to the university. I know a lot of faculty, when I was teaching full-time, were very interested in such a development, particularly single faculty or couples, folks new to the island. And I think you could generate money if the units were designed well with all the amenities that faculty members would need, like a lot of bookshelves and internet connections and things of that nature. And also I thought, Mr. President, and I believe you should do this, you should build your own shopping center on the campus, like the mini marts they have on the bases, and lease the space out and generate revenue that way. You know, bring the bookstore out where it's more accessible to the public. Bring, you know, revenue-generating things to the people, where people come to the campus and get a soda or have lunch, or tour the campus and stop for lunch at like a Denny's on campus. And I really would recommend you do this. This happens in other campuses. You know, they do this a lot. And I think UOG has such beauty, and the views are so wonderful that you could get a public-private partnership to work with you at it. It wouldn't cost you the money. You have the land, and just build it. And I know you'll get people interested in participating. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Well, thank you for that, Senator Guthertz. You know, some of those ideas have been raised already in the context of our upcoming physical master plan, because we are thinking about that. Because, you know, if we look at the whole area as a kind of an education economic zone, you know, one of the statistics always that's fascinating is you have, you know, 8,000 to 9,000 students going in that area almost every day for some educational purpose, and it just kind of boggles the mind that you can't have, you know, a functioning bookstore, for-profit bookstore. We have functioning bookstores. I don't want to get anyone upset. I'm sorry for that, wherever you're at. I know you're watching. I'm sorry. But it's not just bookstores, but, you know, it's the whole area of doing some economic development there. So that's part of it. That's also, you know, not a part of our land proposal here, because that part is devoted to maybe doing some housing area for researchers, for visiting researchers. Hopefully, like next time James Cameron comes to Guam, he'll stay there. So it has to be a little bit more than, has to be air conditioned.
Thank you. And I don't know whether you know this, Dr. Under, but I spent my first 3 years of my college education at UOG, so it has a special place in my heart. She was. She was my professor. That's why I'm here today too. Sure. And let's see. I had a question. It was regarding printout in your most recent audit report, and it was just a question on an outstanding dollar amount. If you could maybe expand on where this money might be sitting. Currently I sit on the Guam Workforce Investment Board, and I know that there was an amount of money that was forwarded to UOG to work on some projects with the One Stop Center. And according to September 30, 2011, there was about $218,000 that was still left behind. So I'm wondering what's the plan on that, and whether would the university be, or is it possible to reprogram that fund to work with the Department of Labor to deal with either a case manager training? I don't know whether it's the appropriate place to do it, but these are funds that we could use to help filter and move some of the clients to either attend the university for some training or development. It's about $218,000.
If you give me the grant number later, I'll look into that. I'm not specifically familiar with that grant, but we can have a look.
I'd appreciate that, and that would greatly help serve our local community. And last but not least, as you know that the university and all other agencies don't operate in a vacuum, and our largest agencies are Guam Department of Education, and so I really appreciate the changes and the leadership that you have just selected for the for the School of Education. What are some of the plans, perhaps, or that's in front of the university regarding, I guess, teacher education? And the reason why I bring this up has a lot to do with the whole college and career readiness, and I've been attending several training sessions. And sometimes they happen in small little pockets, 15 teachers, 30 teachers, but I think that it's a great opportunity for the university to work with our in-service teachers. And so I'm just curious, where is the School of Education going now, and how is it going to work closely with Department of Education? What is your vision, Mr. President?
Well, of course, we're eager to work with the Department of Education, and we'll leave it up to the new dean, Dr. Lannan, to sort all that out. One of our admitted weaknesses in the past has been this, that we've fallen on hard times with our relationship with the Department of Education. So I believe that we're now on a positive track. Dr. Lannan is highly regarded, and he comes to us in a very interesting way. As part of the 60th, we invited the Dean of the College of Education in Ohio State University to attend Founders Day, since Ohio State was the main sponsor. When she came out, she noted that she had worked with Dr. Lannan before, and that she kind of functioned as his mentor. And so now we've established this kind of interesting relationship. So now he has resources, and he has his own independent vision, and I'm sure there'll be many appropriate opportunities for him to speak out and to visit all of you and explain his vision and his plans for the future. But we're all very excited about that. Okay. We're all very excited.
And last but not least, I know in tying back to the entrepreneurial spirit, there's no plans on, what did one president say? They privatize their parking, their parking structures.
Well, don't discount that. You never know. Right now, if there's all kinds of people out there who think that one of the things that they're entitled to is parking within 50 feet of their classroom. Well, as the university grows, as we try to encourage more sustainable practices, that might shift. We're in part of our physical master plan, we're trying to make it more pedestrian friendly, right, and have on the feeling more of a mall. So actually the way that you would drive through the campus now would be through the perimeter rather than through the middle. So it's an effort to try to generate that. So generate a new feel, but in conjunction with that, there may be, but if you think about it, that idea for the Ohio State, they're anticipating revenue of $500 million just from parking. if you authorize us for that, we'd,
That didn't
no,
come from
we're
you,
not
okay?
gonna. Didn't come from me. Nobody has any fingerprints on the idea of charging.
Thank you very much.
They're here to watch me.
Senator Monasilva Tarrant.
Oh, I'm a proud Triton, I'd have to say.
All right.
So it's amazing, and it's really fascinating to watch the university grow from the modular homes that I used to take my communication classes and agriculture classes. So to see it, it's so different, and I just love, and I'm excited for the university to see where it's going to go. Just going back to the numbers, you had mentioned that you won't be able to operate with the administration's figures and without the financial support, the tuition support. What are we looking at? Would the students have to bear the cost, or would there be cuts in certain areas?
I think it'll be a combination of both, you know.
And how do you prioritize that?
We first look at the cuts to see what we've done. I should note that to get to the budget that we presented here, we already internally cut about $1.9 million out of the original request that came to us. So what you see here is not just an all-in budget. It's already represents the priorities that we have. Is there more left to cut? I'm not sure. You know, with the growth of enrollment, with the increasing costs that are mandated, as the President said earlier, on the retirement side, you know, the reinstitution of merit increases, that type of a thing, those put pressures on a very flat appropriation. You know, I just did a quick calculation just to give you a sense. Back in 2000, we had $24 million or something like that by way of an appropriation for general operations from the legislature. If you just took the increases we've had over time, the inflationary type of a thing, our budget today would be 32.5 million in general ops as compared to the 24. And so we're way under that, and we've got about 200 and 300 more students to serve. So I think it's going to be difficult. But in any case, we'll look again. I'm not sure that there are a lot of costs to cut. You know, probably just to deferred hiring, something like that. You know, after that, yeah, I think we have to look at the tuition. It's the, you know, the one big revenue source outside of the general operations. So I think that would be inevitable if we don't get the request. That
But you
it
have
would be
said
there.
before, I think in our last meeting, that would be your last resort, to pass it on to the students.
Yes, we always look at the cuts or even revenue generation before we look. And by revenue generation, you know, we have other funds that we don't necessarily present here. You know, for example, we have indirect costs that we earn from the feds. We have some of the other discretionary funds that we earn. And we have always in the past looked to push some of the expenses into those funds as much as they can absorb before we've raised tuition. So I think that's been our game plan all along. Look for revenue generation, look for potential for more cuts, look for energy conservation. Energy is a huge expense for us at the university. And then defaulting from that, we look at the other options, which include tuition.
And charging for parking now.
that isn't on my list at the moment, but it would be a nightmare at the moment to do it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Senator Guthrie, it's a question on the budget.
Really had to, thank you. You've really had to hold back on hiring new faculty. Is that correct? And that's still ongoing.
Still ongoing.
And can you share with us what the effect of that is on your student body?
Maybe I'll have.
Yeah. Many of our faculty have maxed in terms of teaching overloads, and when you have more faculty focusing on covering sections from which we have vacancies of FTEs, faculty FTEs, then less time available in terms of advisement and, you know, addressing the full retention concern. At the School of Business and Public Administration alone, we've had to defer hiring for 3 FTEs. We have a total of 20, so you can imagine for majors, growing majors of close to 800, and you have about 20, and we rely on gosh, over 20 adjunct faculty, and even at that, we don't have enough to cover all the sections. We've had to cancel sections of courses because we just don't have enough of the capacity. So across the other academic units, schools and colleges, they face the same issue in terms of faculty hiring deferment. The tourism and hospitality area, we've had to defer hiring for Dr. Solis's vacancy for 2 consecutive fiscal years. So hopefully that opens up this new fiscal year, and we can fill that vacancy finally. Yeah. So that's become a priority. But again, can we get by with adjunct faculty? There just aren't enough qualified adjunct faculty in certain discipline areas that a full-time FTE could very well handle for us. And just to give you that example.
Mr. President, how about with the growing interest now with the Russian tourists coming to Guam, and the numbers are increasing every month? Do we have any courses in the Russian language being taught right now at the university?
No, we don't. And as we had discussed earlier, the Russian language courses we're trying to arrange through, on an immediate basis, through PIP, through Professional International Programs. I think Kathleen Morlin's going to Russia tomorrow as part of that, and so then we're trying to figure a way. And just by coincidence, one of the speakers at the President's Forum, Ricardo Fernandez from Lehman College, his college has a partnership with Far Eastern for Russian language teachers. So we talked about that. So
That's
who
great.
knew?
That's great.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Good. And how about the Chinese language?
Well, it's the Chinese is a little bit easier. We hoping that we get the opportunity to get a little bit of freedom on our funds here. Then we certainly will be hiring someone to teach Mandarin on a full-time basis.
Great.
Otherwise, adjuncts, of course, are terrific, and they're they help us out. But even the more adjuncts we hire, there is some drop-off in the continuity,
right,
and in the quality, and in the ambience of the program.
Sure. Well, I do know that the
Except for you, of course.
Mr. President, the Chinese Chamber of Commerce has immense contacts with the government of the People's Republic of China and also the Republic of China, and I think they could help facilitate identifying potential exchange professors to teach the Chinese language, or perhaps recruiting a professor to teach full-time Chinese, or even identifying folks that might be willing to come for a semester or two to teach. So I just recommend contact with Uncle Al over at the Chinese Chamber of Commerce and his team, because they're very approachable and they're wonderful people. Could be helpful to you.
And we did sign a partnership last November with 3 Chinese universities. One of them is Shanghai Normal, the other is Qinzhou, and the other is Hagåtña, and that one has a very large school of tourism actually, and they're interested in helping us out. So
great.
It'll come. You'll see it by the end of the academic year.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, and that's a good segue into my next question. There are approximately 39 vacant positions are being requested, and the total funding will be $1.8 million. And can the university function if vacancies such as certain positions, clerks, administrative assistants, word processing, secretaries, accountants, technicians, personnel specialists, buyers, painters, and all that?
It's not that we don't want to hire them. It's that when you're facing a $4 million holdback, it has to come from somewhere. Most of our budget, I think, somewhere around 75 to 80% of our budget is personnel. We're much like other parts of the government of Guam. So when we do receive these holdbacks, that's where it comes from. What does that mean? It means a lot of extra work. It means some of our control systems get pretty thin. It means it takes us longer to do certain things. So yes, it's a big impact on us. Right now, the vacancies are a little bit down from the 39. That was a while back, but it's still very close. I just had just added up our current vacancies. It's about 1.5 million, so slightly different, but
Well, the
similar.
breakdown was that for other position was 388,000, for instructors and professors, 749,000, and the other is 681,000. In a form, I don't know if this came from you.
Yes, it's from about December of 2011.
Okay, and of course it lists the FTEs, and although it would say vacant, in parentheses you have a name of an individual that's filling the position. So I mean, so
Is that the person going out, or the?
Well, that's what I want to.
I think it's the person going out. So we recognize it's easier for us to recognize.
Okay, so
it
that's
that way.
going to become vacant because that person is
Correct.
going out then.
Yeah.
Okay, or it's not a person that's going in.
Correct.
Okay.
We do use that same list to update it, but yeah.
We're not that clear.
Or well, you can have somebody sitting in temporarily.
Sometimes we do. Sometimes we detail people into those positions.
And in doing a student tuition and fee revenue analysis for starting from 2007, that you're at $8.9 million. For 2008, 9.1 million. 2009, 10.9. 2010 is 11.8, and then for 2011 is 9.5. Now, based on the audit that was done, there was a large increase in scholarship discounts and allowances that are being provided. So from 8.8 in 2010 to 12.9 in 2011. Can you tell us what's the difference? And this can't be as allowed by law, senior citizens who can take courses for free.
Correct. It's not. It's mainly federal financial aid that goes towards tuition. What it represents is basically a timing issue in terms of our audit. As you know, we're on an academic year basis, so that's August through May. And the audit comes at September 30th, October 1st. So basically what you see in that one particular year is we were late in some of the student financial aid awards, and because of that lateness, it threw it from one fiscal year into another. That's simply it. It's still a very constant, if you were to drag it out, that number is more tied to enrollment. What you're seeing is the timing issue that we had in that particular year.
Because that wasn't stated, of course, in the audit, and that's the reason why we'd have to ask you the question.
I think it was in the management discussion and analysis. I think we mentioned that there. I can check and give you a copy of that part of the MD&A that addressed that particular issue. But it was quite. I don't remember the amount exactly, but it was quite big, several $1 million. It was timing one fiscal year into another, but in the same academic year.
So how much then can you, or figured in what the allowances or discounts are? Do you know what your cost is, the university's cost?
I don't do that personally, but if you want someone to discuss it, I can bring it up, and we can give you just maybe a 1 or 2 paragraph explanation of how we determine it.
That would be good. Okay, so there's nobody here that will be able to give it to us, so later on you can provide the information.
I'll provide it later. That might be easier to digest, yeah.
Okay. That's it. So is there any other last questions that anyone would like to ask? Would you like to provide a closure?
We have a big fan.
Whoa.
That's, the big O. So just so.
And it's not pollution.
No.
Well, we want to thank the university, of course, and all those who are here in support of your budget for coming in this afternoon for this roundtable, but it is still, we're going to consider it as a budget hearing. And although others may think that we're setting precedent with you, we're not. We're going back up there tomorrow when we meet with the judiciary, with the Unified Court. So it is 10 after 12. This completes the budget hearing for the University of Guam. And I'd like to, of course, continue to leave the door open to continue with the dialogue with the university with additional information that we would need. And more importantly, of course, I know we had that discussion about two issues, the land and the scholarships, that we need to continue to dialogue on that if that is going to end up being part of the budget or a separate legislation. So thank you again. This budget hearing is adjourned or completed.